Welcome, everyone. I'm really glad you're here today. Before we begin, I want you to take a slow breath with me. Not a rushed breath. Not the kind you take when you are anxious. A steady one. In and out. Because today, we are not just talking about fear. We are talking about the cycle of fear, the invisible loop that keeps repeating in your life. Maybe you know it very well. You want to speak English, but you're afraid of making mistakes. You want to apply for a better job, but you're afraid of rejection. You want to introduce yourself confidently, but your heart beats too fast. So you wait. You prepare more. You think more. You delay more. And slowly, fear becomes a habit. Not a big dramatic fear. Not a horror movie fear, just a quiet, everyday fear that whispers, not today, maybe later. What if you fail? And without realizing it, you begin living inside a cycle. Tonight, we are going to break that cycle. Not with motivation alone, not with fake positivity, not with loud energy, but with clarity. Because fear is not your enemy. Misunderstanding fear is. This video is for the immigrant who feels small in a new country, for the non-native speaker who thinks their accent is a weakness, for the adult learner who wonders if it's too late. If that sounds like you, stay with me. By the end of this video, you will not just understand fear. You will see the pattern. You will see the trap. And most importantly, you will see the door out. Let's begin. Part 1. Understanding the fear cycle. Before we can break the fear cycle, we have to see it clearly. Most people think fear is a single moment. A presentation, a phone call, an interview, a conversation in English. But fear is rarely just one moment. It is a pattern. Let me show you how the cycle usually works. First, there is a trigger. Something small happens. Your boss asks you to speak in a meeting. Someone speaks to you quickly in English. You think about posting a video. The trigger itself is neutral. It is just an event. But then comes the second stage. Interpretation. Your brain begins asking questions. What if I make a mistake? What if they laugh at my accent? What if I don't understand? This is where fear quietly grows. Your brain is trying to protect you. It is not trying to hurt you. It remembers past embarrassment. It remembers rejection. It remembers discomfort. And it says, let's avoid that. Then comes stage 3. Avoidance. You speak less. You say, I'm not ready yet. You tell yourself you need more preparation. In that moment, avoidance feels safe. Your heart slows down. The anxiety reduces. You feel relief. But that relief is temporary. Because stage 4 is reinforcement. Your brain learns something dangerous. Avoiding works. It believes you survived because you didn't act. So next time, fear comes faster. Stronger, more automatic. And the cycle repeats. Trigger, interpretation, avoidance, reinforcement. Again and again. If you are a non-native English speaker living in America, this cycle can become part of daily life. You avoid speaking, so your confidence stays low. Your confidence stays low, so you avoid speaking. You want improvement, but fear blocks exposure. And without exposure, growth is slow. This is not weakness. This is neuroscience. Your brain is wired for survival, not for growth. Growth requires discomfort. Survival prefers safety. Breaking the fear cycle means choosing growth over automatic safety. But before we talk about how to break it, you need to accept one powerful truth. Fear is not proof that you are incapable. It is proof that you care. And when you care deeply, your brain becomes protective. The cycle only feels permanent because you have repeated it many times. And what is repeated becomes automatic. But anything automatic can be retrained. In the next part, we will go deeper. We will talk about why fear feels bigger in a new country, and why immigrants and adult learners experience it more intensely than others. Part 2. Why fear feels bigger in a new country. If you grew up speaking English as your first language, fear still exists. But if you move to America as an adult, fear changes shape. It becomes heavier. Because now, it is not only about making mistakes. It is about identity. When you live in a new country, everything becomes performance. Ordering food, talking to a neighbor, answering a phone call, explaining your opinion at work. Simple tasks suddenly feel like exams. And when English is not your first language, your brain works twice as hard. You are translating. You are monitoring grammar. You are checking pronunciation. You are watching facial expressions, all at the same time. This mental pressure increases sensitivity to fear. Even a small mistake can feel like a threat, not because it is dangerous, but because it feels like exposure. You are not just afraid of being wrong. You are afraid of being seen as less capable. And here is something important. In a new country, you lose your automatic confidence. Back home, you knew how to joke. You knew how to express emotion. You knew how to argue, persuade, comfort. In English, you may feel limited, simpler, smaller. This gap between who you are inside and what you can express outside creates frustration. And frustration increases fear. You start thinking, I sound stupid. I don't feel like myself. Maybe I'm not smart enough. But listen carefully. Your intelligence did not disappear. Your personality did not disappear. Your value did not disappear. Only your speed of expression changed. And when expression slows down, fear tries to fill the silence. There is another factor. In a foreign environment, you feel more visible. When you have an accent, you cannot hide it. When you pause to search for words, people notice. So your nervous system becomes alert more often. High alert means higher fear. And over time, this constant alertness becomes exhausting. You might avoid social events. You might avoid leadership roles. You might avoid raising your hand. Not because you lack ability, but because your body associates speaking with stress. The fear cycle becomes stronger in this environment because the stakes feel higher. But here is the truth. Most people are not judging you as much as you imagine. They are thinking about their own lives, their own worries, their own insecurities. Fear magnifies the spotlight. But the spotlight is mostly in your mind. Part 3. When fear becomes your identity. At the beginning, fear is just a reaction. You feel nervous, you hesitate, you avoid. But after repeating the cycle many times, something subtle happens. Fear stops being something you feel. It starts becoming something you believe. You no longer say, I'm afraid to speak. You begin saying, I'm just not good at speaking. Do you see the difference? One is temporary. The other is identity. And identity is powerful. When fear becomes identity, it shapes your decisions automatically. You stop applying for opportunities before trying. You label yourself as introverted, bad at communication, or not leadership material. Maybe some of those descriptions are partially true, but often they are built on repeated avoidance, not real limitations. Let's slow this down. If every time you avoid speaking in meetings, you feel relief, your brain learns. This is who we are. We stay quiet. If every time you decline an invitation because you feel uncomfortable, your brain learns. We are not social. Over time, these patterns feel natural, comfortable, even logical. But comfort is not always truth. Sometimes it is just repetition. There is something important about adult learners and immigrants. You have already proven courage. You moved countries. You started over. You survived uncertainty. That is not the behavior of a weak person. Yet in daily communication, fear can make you forget that strength. Because identity is influenced by recent experiences. If your recent experiences are full of hesitation and silence, your brain concludes, "This is me." But here is a powerful question. Who were you before fear became repetitive? Were you curious, talkative, confident in your own language? That person did not disappear. They are just operating in a new system. Fear is not your personality. It is a protective response that became habitual. And habits feel like personality when repeated long enough. This is why breaking the fear cycle is not only about behavior. It is about separating fear from identity. You are not a fearful person. You are a capable person who learned a fearful pattern. And patterns can be redesigned. Part 4. The hidden comfort inside fear. This part may feel uncomfortable, but it is necessary. If fear only caused pain, you would have eliminated it already. The truth is, fear also gives you something. It gives you protection. It gives you an excuse. It gives you certainty. Let's be honest. When you say, "I'm not ready yet," you protect yourself from possible embarrassment. When you say, "My English isn't good enough," you protect yourself from possible rejection. When you stay quiet in a meeting, you protect yourself from being wrong in public. And protection feels safe, even if it limits you. There is a hidden comfort in staying small. If you don't try, you don't fail. If you don't speak, you don't make mistakes. If you don't apply, you don't get rejected. Fear whispers, "Stay where it's safe." And your nervous system agrees. But safety and growth rarely exist in the same place. Here is something deeper. Fear also protects your self-image. If you never fully try, you never fully test your potential. And if you never test it, you can always say, "I could have done better if I really tried." That sentence feels comforting. It preserves hope, but it also preserves stagnation. Because once you truly try, the result becomes real. And real results can hurt. So fear offers a compromise. It says, "Let's dream quietly, but avoid action." For immigrants and adult learners, this compromise feels practical. Life is already hard. You are already adapting. Why add more discomfort? So you stay in familiar discomfort instead of stepping into unfamiliar growth. This is the hidden trap. Fear convinces you that avoiding risk is wise. Sometimes it is. But when avoidance becomes your default strategy, it quietly shrinks your world. Opportunities become smaller. Your voice becomes softer. Your confidence becomes conditional. The fear cycle continues not because you are weak, but because part of you believes it is helping. Breaking the cycle requires a shift. You must see fear not as an enemy to destroy, but as a protector that has overstayed its welcome. Part 5. The first step. Interrupt the pattern. Now we begin the real work. Not dramatic change, not overnight transformation, just interruption. Because you do not break a cycle by fighting it. You break it by interrupting it. Remember the 4 stages: trigger, interpretation, avoidance, reinforcement. Most people try to fight fear at the emotion level. They say, I need to feel more confident. But confidence is not the first step. Awareness is. The first practical step is this: catch the interpretation. The trigger is neutral. Someone asks you a question in English. That is neutral. But your interpretation happens in milliseconds. They will judge me. I will sound stupid. I will fail. That thought feels automatic. But automatic does not mean accurate. When you interrupt the interpretation, you slow down the cycle. Instead of, they will judge me, try, maybe they are just listening. Instead of, I will embarrass myself. Try, I might make a mistake, and that's normal. This is not fake positivity. It is cognitive correction. Your brain predicts danger quickly. You must introduce alternative explanations intentionally. This small shift weakens the fear response. Now comes the second interruption. Reduce avoidance by 10%. Not 100%. Not total bravery. Just 10% more action than usual. If you normally say nothing in meetings, say 1 sentence. If you avoid phone calls, make 1 short call. If you avoid introducing yourself, practice 1 simple introduction. Small exposure retrains the nervous system. When you act and survive, your brain updates its data. It learns. We spoke, and nothing terrible happened. This is how reinforcement begins to change. Instead of reinforcing avoidance, you reinforce action. Tiny action, repeated consistently. Fear grows through repetition. Courage grows the same way. You do not eliminate fear in 1 decision. You weaken it through multiple small decisions. For non-native speakers, this approach is powerful. You do not need perfect grammar. You need consistent exposure. Fluency grows through use, not through hiding. And every time you interrupt the pattern, you prove something important. You are not controlled by automatic thoughts. You can pause. You can choose. You can act. Even while feeling afraid. Part 6. Building tolerance for discomfort. Most people think courage means not feeling fear. But that is not true. Courage means feeling fear and staying present anyway. If you want to break the fear cycle, you must increase 1 skill. Discomfort tolerance. Right now, your nervous system reacts quickly to social risk. Your heart beats faster, your palms sweat, your mind searches for escape, and your body says, get out. But here is something powerful. Discomfort is not danger. It feels intense, but it is temporary. When you avoid discomfort, you teach your brain. This sensation is unsafe. When you stay in discomfort for just a little longer, you teach your brain. This sensation is survivable. That difference changes everything. Let's talk about how to build this tolerance safely. First, choose manageable challenges. Not the biggest fear, not public speaking in front of 200 people. Start smaller. Speak to a cashier and maintain eye contact for 2 extra seconds. Ask a coworker 1 follow-up question. Share 1 opinion, even if your voice shakes slightly. Then do something important. Do not escape immediately after speaking. Stay in the moment. Let your body calm down naturally. When your nervous system settles without avoidance, it learns stability. Second, separate performance from identity. If your sentence is imperfect, it does not mean you are imperfect. If your pronunciation is unclear, It does not mean you are incapable. It means you are practicing in real life. Real growth is messy. Third, repeat exposure consistently, not once a month, not when you feel ready, but regularly. Frequency matters more than intensity. 5 small exposures per week are stronger than one big one. Your brain rewires through repetition. And remember, fluency and confidence grow in the same environment. Usage. Silence protects comfort. Speech builds strength. For immigrants and adult learners, this is especially important. You are not behind. You are adapting. And adaptation requires friction. Each moment of discomfort is proof that you are stretching, not failing, stretching. Part 7. Designing a new identity through action. We have talked about the cycle. We have talked about interpretation. We have talked about exposure and discomfort. Now we reach the most important shift. Breaking the fear cycle is not just about reducing anxiety. It is about rebuilding identity. Remember earlier when we said fear slowly becomes who you think you are? Now we reverse that process. Identity is not created by thoughts alone. It is created by repeated evidence. If you repeatedly avoid speaking, you gather evidence that you are not confident. If you repeatedly act, even in small ways, you gather different evidence. You begin collecting proof that you are capable. Here is how you design a new identity intentionally. First, choose a simple statement. I am becoming someone who speaks even when nervous. Not, I am fearless. Not, I am perfectly confident. Just, I am becoming someone who acts. Notice the word becoming. Identity is dynamic. It is shaped in motion. Second, attach identity to behavior, not outcome. If you speak and make mistakes, you still acted. If you apply and get rejected, you still acted. Your identity becomes based on courage, not results. This protects your growth. Third, measure progress differently. Do not measure by fluency. Measure by frequency of action. How many times did you speak this week? How many uncomfortable moments did you stay present in? Those are victories, because each action weakens the old cycle and strengthens the new one. Over time, something quiet happens. You speak, and fear still appears, but it does not control the decision. You act, and anxiety still exists, but it fades faster. You begin trusting yourself, not because fear disappeared, but because you proved you can function with it. This is emotional maturity. This is growth. For non-native learners in America, this identity shift is powerful. You stop waiting to sound American. You start owning your voice, accent and all. You stop asking, am I good enough? You start asking, did I show up? And showing up consistently transforms self-perception. Fear shrinks when identity expands. The cycle breaks when action becomes habit. You do not need to destroy fear. You only need to outgrow it. In the final part, we will close this journey. We will bring everything together and talk about what your next step looks like starting today. If you're ready, tell me. Tonight, we did not try to eliminate fear. We understood it. We saw the pattern, trigger, interpretation, avoidance, reinforcement. We saw how living in a new country can amplify that pattern, how fear can slowly become identity, how avoidance can feel like safety. But we also saw something stronger: awareness, interruption, small action, repeated exposure, identity built on courage. Fear is not a sign that you are incapable. It is a sign that you are stretching beyond your current comfort zone. And growth has always lived there. If you are a non-native English speaker in America, I want you to remember this. You are already brave. You left familiarity. You stepped into uncertainty. You are building a life in a second language. Do not let temporary hesitation convince you that you are small. The next time fear appears, and it will, pause. Notice the interpretation. Choose a slightly braver action. Stay present a little longer. That is how cycles break, not dramatically, but consistently. If this message spoke to you, if you're working on your confidence, your English, your identity in a new country, consider subscribing to this channel. Here, we don't chase perfection. We build strength slowly. We grow intelligently. We practice courage together. If you found value in this video, leave a comment and tell me, what small action will you take this week, even if fear shows up? Your answer matters. And remember, fear may visit, but it does not get to decide who you become. I'll see you in the next video.